Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We have seen the elections in USA, India, Spain, and a number of other places. And we have also seen the hue and cry raised in two places where there were allegations of the foreign interference. USA, where Russia was supposed to have interfered, although there were also allegations that the Ukraine government had interfered to enable aid assist Hillary Clinton to win, but that interference was not successful. The worst part of interference was seen in the Spanish elections, where Catalonia faction was aided and abetted by a number of countries. However, now Canada is going in for elections this year. October is the time when the elections take place. Actually, now 98 days more than the election will take place. And it is feared by the federal government's top bureaucrats that there is every likelihood of foreign intervention, interference, persuasion, or bribery. There has already been a complaint that Saudi Arabia is interfering in promoting separatism in Quebec. This report was made a few days back. Naturally, Saudi Arabia is quite annoyed with Canada over its interference in the internal affairs of Saudi Arabia. When Christian Freeland, the foreign minister, tweeted about the imprisonment of Badwai, who is also a citizen of Saudi Arabia, and then Khashoggi's murder was condemned, criticized, and they kicked out the Canadian ambassador. They countered by promoting separatism in Quebec. In the last elections, there were proven allegations, which are proven to be correct, that Tide International had injected $23 million to help liberals win because they didn't want Stephen Harper to continue. President Obama, Democratic Party, and Tide International, the front organization, they interfered by investing this money. And now, USA is not very bothered about Canadian elections, but Canadian government, Canadian think tanks and bureaucrats are concerned about the interference, and it's not about another country they're talking about, but the two other countries, China and India, which are likely to interfere to advance their agendas. The population of these two countries is a humongous segment of the Canadian society. And the diaspora has roots in the native countries. Chinese diaspora is usually presumed to be quite loyal to mainland China. And it is alleged that most of them are the fifth columnist. It may be right or wrong because I can see that some media, Epoch Times, for example, is anti-Chinese government. Anyway, there's a stark warning from a secret report. The deputy ministers of the government of Canada have prepared a secret report. And this report is a result of a national security meeting which challenges that the foreign countries are launching hostile state activity against Canada. This activity can be cyber attack, spreading misinformation, but most important, using diaspora directly or indirectly to influence the elections. Now, in Indian case, it is mostly the Sikh community, which is sought to be influenced, a minority of the Sikh community is a devotee of Khalistan movement, and that devotion is basically confined to that segment which is very vocal but in a small minority. And the government of India has just banned a organization called Sikhs for Justice. This ban is for a period of 5 years. And separately, as soon as the ban came into being, the Sikhs for Justice filed a defamation suit against Indian government, headed by Prime Minister Modi. And they say that the Canadian Sikhs are being harassed by the government of Indian officials, particularly consular officials, who are either giving them the allurements or threatening them that their near and dear ones can be taken to task in case they support anti-Khalistani segment. And if they do not support anti-Khalistani, they'll be punished. Now, this case is quite crucial, and it is also alleged that some ministers of the Trudeau government are closely associated with World Sikh Organization. The World Sikh Organization in April sent a letter flagging the arrest of a couple of Germans who were accused of spying on Sikhs and Kashmiris. And they were doing it according to World Sikh Organization on the orders of Indian government. Sometime back, the Gurdwaras had also stopped the entry of the Indian consular officers in the Gurdwara, violating all tenets of Sikhism. And according to the World Sikh Organization, Government of India is trying to divide the Indian diaspora in Hindu and Sikh segments. Now, how far that's true, I don't know. I cannot say. But the very fact that the Prime Minister Trudeau received a very cold shoulder for his own acts of omission and commission, of course, and Andrew Scheer was given a red carpet treatment, though he is not the Prime Minister, but he is Prime Minister in waiting as a leader of the opposition, shows that the Indian government, even if it doesn't support directly, is giving sufficient hints that Trudeau is not the blue-eyed boy of the Indian government. Now, there's a possibility that the diaspora itself has the same political inclination that the government has, and it might affect that way, it might vote that way. Nevertheless, the media, the government, and the community, they are interlinked. The cultural connection, the financial connection, the family connection, they tell. And last year, for example, there was 51% increase in the immigration of Indians to Canada. 51%. Can you believe it? So this is a major worry for the Liberal Party, and also for the devotees of Khalistan, because they know that in case the Conservatives come in power, they would not be having the easy way out, as Stephen Harper declared very clearly at CIF, Canada India Foundation, recently. So this fear has been documented by that secret report given to the government by the deputy ministers, who say that even if there is no direct interference, the indirect interference would be there. Please just. I was saying the Chinese diaspora is another kettle of fish. Each Chinese immigrant, with few exceptions, is deemed to be an ambassador of China, ambassador of the cultural values and the political values. And China doesn't have very good relations with Canada today. So much so that former Minister of Trudeau and former Canadian ambassador in China, John McCallum, very directly requested the Chinese to interfere in favor of Trudeau government so that the conservatives do not come into power. This request by McCallum was so patently absurd that even normally placid foreign minister had to condemn it because she knew that it's going to send a wrong signal. But that is a clear invitation for the first time in the history of Canada. A former crown minister, a former ambassador is directly inviting interference in the internal affairs of Canada by a country which is hostile economically and politically. The political system of China and Canada, there's nothing common in that. Economically, they are already enslaving other countries. And the real estate market in Canada has exploded because of the Chinese intervention. Now, as I said earlier, the Indian government is not that bold that they will do it overtly. But Chinese are bold, and they say it openly. If they can call Prime Minister Trudeau the little potato, they can arrest the Canadians at a drop of a hat. 3 Canadians are already in jail. 1 has been sentenced. So, the significance of the Chinese and the Indians is an indicator that overtly or covertly, the intervention would be there. And then in this age of globalization, why do we object to it? We say there's freedom of speech. Now, intervention, as I said earlier, if it's by persuasion, if it's by media, if it is by propaganda, it cannot be avoided. If it is by financial and has financial implications, when the finances involved, the money is involved, then it is something highly condemnable. The role of foreign money in the internal politics is something which cannot be condoned by anybody. And this statement of World Sick Organization, referring to the rest of the Germans who were influencing Sikhs, that's ridiculous. But that would create, now this intervention would not be there palpably, but the way these organizations, which are not in favor of the India and the Indian government, would come up with these things to curry sympathy with the voters who are uninformed. Everybody is not aware of the real situation in India or in China for that matter. And therefore, that would affect them a lot. And they would say, well, these governments may not be acceptable. Now, if you have done like Professor David Carmen, that diaspora is always affected by the politics of the host native country, not of the host country. Host countries always at the receiving end. And Canada is a host country for that matter. And if we have the hostile state activity, the Canadian perspective, you can be sure that India and its Five Eye partners, Canada and its Five Eye partners, which are USA, UK, New Zealand, Australia, and France. Now, these partners have always been interfering, and not only by propaganda, not only by persuasion, but even by direct injection of funds. As I told you about the Tide International investing $23 million in the last election of 2011. So 2014. So that being so, there is a clear indication that this time, while India would be affecting by persuasion, China would do all means to interfere to see that the government which comes in power is to its liking. Now, China is between the devil and the deep sea. It doesn't like conservatives, and the recent Trudeau action has dismayed it. So they might like a situation where there is no firm government in the center. They might like a minority, and they might try for that. India definitely would prefer a conservative government. So would USA prefer a conservative government. So would England prefer a conservative government, because the new Prime Minister of England, Boris, who is going to take oath in the next few days, he is another Trump, an ultra carbon copy of Trump. So the conservative governments like USA, like India, Australia, and England are likely to favor and persuade the voters to vote in favor of conservative government. France, the other one of the Five Eye partners, would definitely like liberals to continue, because Macron and Trudeau have a very good relationship, reasonably better than others. But to deny that the foreign interference would not be there is a midsummer night dream. And the reality is that in the age of globalization, interference would be there. The action should only be to see that it is not palpable, it is not financed back, and it doesn't affect the sovereignty of the country. Persuasion, yes. Buying, no. That's what the government of Canada should aim at. Thank you.